Welcome to video 2 on the FCEditor Complete Guide series, where I'll be explaining everything you need to know about making custom FutureCop levels in FCEditor. For this video, I'll be showing you how to start modeling levels. Please note that the editor is still in development and things are subject to change. The version used in this video is 0.2. Be sure to check out any update showcase videos to see what's changed. Other than that, here's how to get started 3D modeling FutureCop levels. Before modeling, we need to understand how FutureCop level geometry works. FutureCop splits its levels into 16 by 16 tile sections. Levels have 4 out-of-bounds sections in either direction. Everything in the middle is playable area. Each section has 17 by 17 by 3 vertices, no more and no less. These vertices are the game's height map. Each corner of a tile grid space has 3 vertices. The 3 vertices have a set order, and their order is called channel. Their order is represented by color in the editor. Blue is the first channel, green is the second, and red is the last. Their order does matter, so do keep it in mind. Tiles are what connect to these vertices, and they are essentially just a face. Tiles have their own textures, colors, and other properties. Loading into LA Cantina, we can see how the height maps are being used. In Height Map Edit mode, you can select a section by enabling Free Look and clicking. Selecting a section will show all vertices inside this section. It will also show the section border. Because tiles share the height map, levels have to be clever with what channels they use. Typically, the first is for floor, the second is for walls, and the third is for extra geometry. We can see that here with how the level is being modeled. Now, you may have noticed that there are some missing vertices that should be in each corner. They're just tucked underneath the level. These vertices/channels aren't being used by the level, so they are set to their lowest value. Now that we have somewhat of an idea on how levels are formatted, let's back out and create a new level to play around with. On the main menu, hit Create Level. This will bring up a screen with a couple of options. First is to choose a template. The Precinct Assault template has everything you need to create a Precinct Assault level. Empty is not yet available, but will be coming soon. Existing level is to choose an existing FutureCop level as a base. It will flatten the level but keep the assets and actors. For now, I just want to hit Precinct Assault. Below are sliders for setting the width and height the level will be in sections. This is the playable area of the level. After that, hit Open. By default, Height Map Edit mode is selected, and that's the mode that we want to be in. Height Map Edit mode is pretty simple as it's just for changing the heights of vertices. However, there are a few methods for selecting vertices. Selecting a section on a new level will show all the vertices above another. No hidden vertices here. To move a vertex, click on the vertex and drag. A text box will appear showing the current height value. These values are signed 8-bit numbers. Now, if you know what that means, great. If not, just know that the max height a vertex can be is 127 and a minimum of -128. A height value of -128 means that the vertex is set as unused. If a tile is connected to a vertex with a height of -128, the tile may not render. This value can also be set directly by right-clicking on a vertex and typing a value. This can be very handy in making sure things line up. You may have noticed that the vertex turned white when setting an exact value. This means that the vertex is selected. Multiple vertices can be selected at once by holding Shift and clicking. Clicking on a selected vertex will deselect it. Selected vertices will move alongside the dragged vertex, but only if the vertex being dragged itself is selected. Vertices can also be range selected. First select one corner and hold Shift plus Alt and click on another to range select. Everything between the 2 points should now be selected. To clear selection, click C. We can also select all vertices within a section. To do this, make sure no vertices are selected and hold Shift plus Alt and click. This will select all vertices with the same channel. For example, clicking a blue vertex will select all other blue vertices. Now that's not all with selection. There's also another selection technique called grid selection. If Free Look is enabled and we hold down a number representing the channel and click, it will select all vertices in the grid with that channel. So holding 1 will select all blue channels, 2 for green, 3 for red. We can also range select with the grid select as well. If we move the camera while holding down a number, it will range select with the grid. Holding down a number to represent the channel also applies to all other selection and not just grid selection. This can be useful if two vertices are inside each other. There are two tools inside this mode. One is to set all unused vertices to their lowest value. As mentioned, the lowest value means that the vertex is unused. This also helps with actors that fly, as they use the height map as a reference for how high they should fly, notably Sky Captain. The other is a toggle. If enabled, the next channel will always stay above the last. This has multiple uses, but its primary use is for making sure vertices aren't underneath the level. Now that's pretty much all there is to know about height map edit mode, but on its own, it can't do very much without tiles that are connected to it. So let's add some tiles to the level. The next mode I'll be touching on is tile add mode. Tile add mode is specifically for adding new tiles. It cannot edit the ones that are added, that's for tile edit mode. This mode can add basic shapes, but it also has the powerful level schematics, but more on that later. Clicking into this mode, there will be some tile presets on the top toolbar. Clicking on one will select the tile preset and allow you to place the tile. You can transform the tile before placing it to make sure it fits what you need. Right-clicking will move the tile to the next channel, and scrolling will rotate the tile. If you have a wall tile selected and try scrolling, it will only have a left or top wall. That's because bottom or right walls don't exist. I'll explain more on that later on. To combat this, just move over a grid space. Once you have a tile that you would like to add, left-click to place. You can also range add by clicking and dragging. Other than schematics, that's pretty much all there is to this mode. Now with height map edit mode and tile add mode, we can almost start modeling the level, but tile edit mode provides the missing pieces that make these two modes work together. Before we continue, however, you might have noticed that the level is a little hard to see, and this is because everything is the same texture. The editor features a light mode to help with this. Hit escape to bring up the escape menu and then hit view. Enable the directional light toggle. A warning prompt will come up saying that this will clear the undo history. Click OK, and now the level should be much easier to see. Now it's time for tile edit mode. This mode has a lot of helper tools for creating levels and for adjusting existing tiles on the level. It allows selection of tiles similar to height map edit mode. Moving the cursor over the level will show a selection preview. To select a tile, hit left click. The selected tile will now be highlighted green, and it will also bring up the vertices on the tile's grid space. Multiple tiles can be selected by holding Shift and clicking. If a selected tile is clicked while Shift is being held, the tile will be deselected. Tiles can also be range selected by selecting one tile and then selecting another with Shift plus Alt. Range select will try to find similar tiles to select. To override this, double-click while holding Shift and Alt. To clear the current selection, press C. The last selection method is Paint Selection. If you click and hold and move the cursor, it will select all tiles that the cursor hovers over. This can be very useful for selecting things that aren't in a square pattern. In tile edit mode, tiles can be removed by hitting the delete key. However, a single tile must be present in the grid space. Now before we talk about the tools, let's talk about the vertices that pop up when selecting a tile. Tile add mode has a set amount of shapes, and even with the available transform methods, there still might not be a shape that fits exactly what you're looking for. In tile edit mode, we can directly change which channel a tile is connected to. With the tile selected, click and drag on that vertex that the tile is connected to, and move the cursor to another vertex. This will change what channel the tile is connected to on that corner. Note that this applies to all selected tiles. Depending on what kind of change you made, the overlay may turn red. This is extremely important to pay attention to. To explain why this turned red, FutureCop has a very unfortunate compression where there's only a set number of channel combination or shapes a tile can be. This is called a mesh ID. There are 110 different mesh IDs that a tile can have. Going back, this is why back and right walls don't exist. Their mesh isn't part of the 110 mesh IDs. When the overlay turns red, that means that this shape or mesh does not exist. It is important to solve these errors immediately, as this means the level cannot save and can cause other issues as well. Many channel combinations simply don't exist. For example, there is no mesh where a tile can connect to the first channel, and then the third. It is important to be mindful of this when making levels. A good way to combat this is to triangulate a quad tile. There are much more mesh IDs for triangle tiles than there are quad tiles. You may need to play around with the tile until the overlay turns back to green. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the tools that this mode provides. The first two are for shifting the tile's channels up or down. The next are the two triangulate/break apart tools. This will convert a quad tile into two triangle tiles. Hovering over the button will draw a line showing how the tile will be split apart. Next is tile extrude. This will shift the tile's vertex channels up, and while doing so, fill in the gaps made. This allows for quick making of walls and other buildings. The next tool is to open the tile effects window. FutureComp can have tiles that affect the player in certain ways. This can be damaging the player, moving the player, forcing them to use hover mode, and more. Opening up the window, there will be 4 tile effect options. The checkmark means what tile effect channel the tile uses, and the effect is what's right of the checkmark. The checkmark of what tile effect to use is a unique value to the tile. However, the effects that are listed are not. These are section values. For example, if I set effect channel 1 to a liquid, all other tiles in this section have access to that effect if their channel effect is set to 1. If I move over to another section, the effects are different in this one. It's important to keep this in mind as again, the effects are values stored on the section. The selection overlay will have a unique texture showing the effect, if the tile's effect channel has an effect. To close this window, hit the Tile Effects button again. Alright, so now we know how to modify the height map, add tiles, and edit the tiles added to refine the level. However, sometimes this can be a little tedious, especially with repeating geometry. Which brings us to the last major level editing feature, level schematics. Level schematics are copied portions of the level that can be reused. Remember the tile presets in Tile Add mode? Think of schematics like that, but entire chunks of level geometry. Let's start by first saving a schematic. In Tile Edit mode, select the tiles that you want to be saved as a schematic and hit Save as Schematic button all the way to the right. To access the level schematics, switch to Tile Add mode. There will be a big schematic button in the top right. Clicking on it will open the schematics window. This window will show a preview of saved schematics. Clicking on one will close the window and select the schematic for placing. Before we place, we can transform the schematic like with tile presets. To rotate, use the scroll wheel or by holding T and clicking the mouse. Left click will rotate clockwise and right click will rotate counterclockwise. We can also flip the schematic by holding G and clicking the mouse. Left click will flip it vertically and right click for horizontally. To reset the transforms done on the schematic, hit R. This will return it to its original form. To place a schematic, hit left click. Now, it's important to know that it still has to share the existing vertices that are in the section. The schematic will modify the section's vertices to fit the level geometry. However, there is a setting that tells the schematic how to be placed. Opening up the schematic window again, there's a drop-down menu for setting what the schematic does to the height map on placement. Exact height will modify the height map to have the originally saved heights. Relative is used to set the heights relative to where the placement is. Keep existing heights means the schematic will not modify the height map and leave the existing vertices alone. Most often, relative is used so that it adds nicely relative to the floor. It's important to note that when a schematic is placed, if it finds a tile with the same mesh ID in the grid space, it will overwrite the original tile. Otherwise, it will keep any existing tiles that were placed over it. Sometimes this isn't wanted. In the schematics window, there is a check to overwrite all tiles. If enabled, placing down a schematic will remove all tiles in the grid space and add new ones from the schematic. Opening up the schematic window again, added schematics can be managed. Right-clicking on a schematic will bring up a context menu with a couple of options. Remove shaders will remove all shaders/vertex colors from the schematic. Rename will of course rename the schematic and delete to remove the saved schematic. Schematics are a part of presets and can be saved and loaded to a preset file in the escape menu. There's one more mode to touch on for level modeling, and that's Section Edit mode. Section Edit mode is more of a utility mode, but it allows for adjusting things on entire sections. Clicking into this mode, we can select a section by clicking. Multiple sections can be selected by holding Shift and clicking. Now you may have noticed that this mode has a lot more tools than the others, but again, these are mostly just utilities. The first is to copy a section. It copies the first selected section. The next 3 tools are for how to paste the section. You can have it paste the entire section, only the heights, or only the tiles. The next 5 tools are for transforming a section, like flipping or rotation. The last 2 are removing shaders in a section, and finally to completely clear a section. Alright, well that's all the features used for modeling levels. There is quite a bit that goes into it, so play around and see what works. If you have any questions or would like to follow the project, consider joining the Discord linked below. The next video will be talking about how to texture tiles, and don't worry, we'll only be using one edit mode in the next video.